look what the cat dragged in. It's marketing management. Many of the tools that we use in marketing are often referred to as promotional strategies. But the combination, effectively, of these strategies is what we now term integrated marketing communications. Now, if you've been following along with the videos to this point, the integrated aspect of what I'm talking about should come as no surprise to you. It follows from the fact that we're trying to create consistency across all of our different marketing mix touch points. We're trying to create a holistic or collective impression rather than one that's piecemeal. Everything speaks or communicates to customers about our brand. And in this segment, what we're going to talk about is the things that we kind of more traditionally view as marketing, like the ads and the social media posts and the guerrilla marketing efforts. Now, the tools that we have and the ways in which we use them are really limited only by our imagination. Now, while some traditional tools have been discounted largely in modern times, there's still a lot of value inherent in using some of these techniques. Billboards on interstates are still really useful tools for attracting people to things like restaurants on off-ramps or just for attending to bored passersby. Hundreds of millions of people watch the Super Bowl every year. Not just to see the Super Bowl, but many people watch it just for the ads, because this is the time of the year when marketers put out their best stuff. People are actually engaged and want to see what it is that the companies are putting out. The key here is, of course, that the context has to be right for them to attend to our messages. We have to put out messages in a way that, number one, they're going to bother to even attend to our marketing message. And then two, what we want ultimately is that they form positive perceptions of our brands as a function of these messages that we put out and how we're putting them out. Did you know that the most expensive commercial in the Super Bowl is typically at the kickoff and not at halftime like some might expect? What do you think the reason for this is? If you said something like it would generate a sense of hope or anticipation, you're absolutely right. Nobody has won and nobody has lost yet on either side. The sky's the limit. Everybody still thinks there's a possible victory, so everybody's got a lot of positive affect built up in them. In addition, this is when most people are glued to the television, waiting for something to happen. So in essence, the marketer here is benefiting from a wider reach and a greater level of positive affect as a function of when this ad is taking place. Now, this is called affect bias. We tend to like things more when we're in a positive mood, and we tend to like things less when we're in a negative mood. The context of a billboard on a highway can work in the exact same way. If you give a bored person something entertaining to do for a few seconds of a long trip, they'll be grateful for it and overlay positive affect onto your brand. This is one of the keys to being able to effectively use traditional media like TV or radio ads or flyers or billboards. We have to maintain a sense of interest and engagement. We have to have a sense of storytelling in order to bring that customer in and make them feel a certain way. And then we can actually get people to take the next steps. Dos Equis is a great example of this, where they created such a rich level of storytelling around the most interesting man that people actually sought out their advertising and chose to be exposed to it. They wanted to see what kind of impossible things this guy was going to do next, and they would go tell their friends about it. When you get people to engage with your marketing messages on this level, you've won. Wendy's restaurant is a fantastic example of a company that is leveraging social media the right way. They actually will sit there and chirp at other brands in order to get people engaged in the messages. They're not simply sitting there saying, hey, buy more hamburgers and chicken sandwiches from us. They're leveraging that resource in a way that is entertaining and gets people to want to see what are they going to do next. Again, a big key to success here is to expose your audience to the right message in the right context to get them to take the next steps with you. Whether you're talking about TV ads, Facebook posts, billboards, podcast advertising, or any number of other techniques, you have to consider whether or not your target audience is going to be there, and will they actually attend to your message, and then after that, will they take the next steps with you as a function of the message that you're putting out. For example, I watch a ton of YouTube tutorials on how to do 3D animation better because it's something I'm really interested in. When they put up an ad, it's typically associated with something that I would be interested in. A tool or a technique or a website that's going to allow me to be better. And I'll actually pause and go, is that something that I could actually use? As opposed to something that's completely unrelated and uninteresting to me. Now, when I see something like an insurance ad, I mute the thing, ignore it, and find something else to do until it's over. That's not really effective for that insurance company. The same goes for things like TV. Matchmaking sites are probably best positioned with romantic comedies. Guns and ammo types of shops or pawn shops are probably best positioned with war movies, History Channel, or survivor outdoor skills types of shows. And the types of content that these ads put out should not be, hey, come buy stuff from us. It should be telling a story, weaving a story, a narrative that brings that customer in and says, I want to be a part of that story. And the brand is the way that they're able to become part of that story. You don't see people in Mini Cooper commercials going, hey, come on down to our car lot. We've got crazy prices on brand new Mini Coopers. No, you see these cars flying through city streets, e-braking through corners, and it gets people to say, I got to try one of those bad boys out. Some less traditional, more innovative techniques include things like webisodes or product placements, targeted social media influencers, guerrilla marketing or stealth marketing. Now, one of the interesting stories about product placement is when they were making the movie E.T. back in the 80s, they actually asked if they could use M&Ms in one of the scenes. And the M&Ms people said, well, that's okay, but you're going to owe us a lot of money to do that. Whereas Reese's Pieces said, you can have as much of our product as you want, just highlight it, showcase it, so that we can get all the branding benefits out of you putting it into your film. Now, this is not the first time that product placement ever happened in films, but it was kind of a turning point where Hollywood producers were realizing that bringing in product placements into their films could mean big money. Product placements are, again, an example of weaving a product into a story. They're weaving the product of Reese's Pieces into the relationship building of a young boy and an alien creature. And now marketers have taken product placement to the next level by doing things exclusive to the product, like creating webisodes like Hammer and Coop for the Mini Cooper. The Mini Cooper people put together 6 4-minute webisodes that you can access off of YouTube that tells the story of a Mini Cooper who can actually talk. It's a personified Mini Cooper that speaks to the driver, and they have all these bad guys that are chasing them, and they escape narrowly all the time because the Mini Cooper is just an awesome car for evading criminals. So they journey across the country and have all these humorous interactions and finally make it all the way out to California. They tell an entire story around this vehicle, highlighting and accentuating the attributes of that vehicle and how fun it is to drive. There's also Garden Party with Jeannie Garth, sponsored by Clorox. There's also In Gale We Trust, created by American Family Insurance. Lego has also partnered with Warner Brothers to create movies. There's also Lego Masters, which is a TV show exclusively dedicated to building cool things with Legos. Now, guerrilla or stealth marketing is where we're creating surprise with consumers, where they don't expect to traditionally see marketing being done. Take a look at this picture of a bus wrist strap that you would hold onto while you're riding on a bus. What do you notice about it? What's the context? What kind of bus is this person on? Can you tell that the person's actually on an airport bus and what's wrapped around their wrist is a wristwatch? Why is this the right context for selling somebody a wristwatch? Well, in general, people who are traveling tend to have more money. Business people traveling much more frequently are the kinds of people that would be interested in buying higher-end wristwatches. In addition, they're standing on a bus with really nothing better to do for that period of time than to look at the interesting thing that is wrapped around their wrist in the shape of a watch. Maybe they're alone, or maybe they're with a colleague or a spouse or something like that who comments on the fact that that watch looks really nice on their wrist. This gives the customer a chance to experience what it would be like to have that watch on their wrist without having to go to a jeweler or other store in order to try the thing on. In that fantastic cross-industry move that I've already noted, TD Bank of Canada borrowed from Coke's Happiness Machine to create the automated thanking machine. They created tailored experiences for their customer base, showing that they know their customers. They sent a family to Walt Disney World. They had one really loyal customer throw out the first pitch at a Toronto Blue Jays game. They showed that they absolutely knew their customers. And smartly, they also recorded this stuff so that they could put it out on YouTube to the tune of 24 million people watching this thing. Now, this is way better than the cost of reach for a traditional TV ad, for example. Take a look at some of these other things like Gillette, Kit Kat, and Mr. Clean. Are these surprising and interesting and engaging? Are they in the right context for people? Let's talk about face-to-face events for just a second, as these can be really effective means of engaging deeply with customers. Now, I'm going to start by providing a counterexample of this because the context and the way that this was set up was wrong. If you read the book Hatching Twitter, you'll see a huge mistake that they make in there. One of my favorite lines out of this book is, they drove a clown car into a gold mine. As a clear example of this analogy, one of the events that they held initially was clearly unsuccessful, where they failed to understand the context and the state of the audience that they were trying to engage with. In one of their early events, they decided to give out liquor along with flyers at a concert event. What could possibly go wrong there? Now, Twitter was trying to engage with a young, tech-savvy audience in a musical context of things that people might discuss. So what was wrong with the context? So now, their thinking was that lots of people like alcohol, and they're giving out free alcohol, which people like even more, so they were planning on generating positive affect for their brand. Okay, well, this part makes sense. However, alcohol is also an inhibitor, which reduces attention and focus. Music venues are also really loud traditionally, so it makes it very difficult to communicate and engage with those customers face-to-face in that context, to try to get them to log on and create a Twitter account and post their first post. Also, they're attempting to hand out flyers, and over the years I've heard so many people say, well, we're just going to go around and blanket flyer people. Almost nobody wants to have a flyer put in their hand. It's basically like saying, here, you throw this away for me. So you've given somebody something that they have to be responsible for. Now, in the context of Twitter, you've just given a person who's probably highly inebriated something to take care of and attend to. What are they going to do with it? They're going to go, okay, I'm going to remember this for later, and they're going to fold it up and put it in their pocket? Or are they just going to drop it on the ground and go, hey, thanks for the free liquor? Their funnel collapsed before people were even entering into the awareness stage. Several years later, they were vastly more successful in becoming the communications platform that people were using at the South by Southwest conference in Austin, Texas. This is where there's a music and arts and innovation cabal of entrepreneurship that comes together, and hundreds of thousands of people attend this thing. Here, they were able to connect with the vast array of different types of audiences that they all wanted to bring together and have communicate using the Twitter platform. They set up monitors all over the conference and scrolled people's tweets across those monitors so that people could see that they were actually being listened to, and other people could comment on their tweets. In fact, they became how people were primarily communicating throughout that South by Southwest conference that year. The word spread like wildfire across this conference, what we call word of mouth. The vast spread of word of mouth in this fashion is what we also term viral marketing. And typically this follows suit with actual viral spread. So there's things like a viral multiplier. So if the viral multiplier is 3, every person that is told will tell 3 more people in that sequence. And so there's a massive spread of communication across individuals who are not from the organization. What's also really relevant from a viral standpoint is that, similar to biological viruses, there's also mutation. So think about playing the classic game of telephone where you say something in somebody's ear and it goes around the room, and by the time it gets to the end, it resembles nothing of what the first person said. That's a bad mutation. We can also have things like inoculations where people have just heard enough of the same message over and over again that they just begin to ignore it. Now, a strong retention of the core message is what we call copy fidelity. If it's a positive message about a particular brand, we want it to remain both positive and about that particular brand. We don't want it to be negative about that brand, and we don't want it to be positive about somebody else's brand. Now, just because we can't directly control the messages that are coming out of people's mouths once they pass beyond our marketing vehicles, they're not beyond some measure of control. This is where narratives and storytelling and creating a strong core around a brand actually matter. Now, a person may make a mistake, for example, in recounting a story about the most interesting man and Dos Equis. But as long as the most interesting man and Dos Equis are still in there and the story is relatively interesting and positive, the rest of the story doesn't matter. These elements anchor the story and the brand. That's why it's so important to have a consistent brand image, because people will just be able to impute or assume what the additional information should be. This is how Dos Equis stories typically unfold. I might make a mistake in there, but it's still same kind of thing. Now, an interesting newer way that marketers are starting to leverage more organic types of engagement is through influencer marketing on social media. Now, these people typically have relatively large followings in a very specific area. So you've got foodies, you've got people that are experts in automotive things, you've got people that are experts in style. Now, in fact, my brother-in-law, Ryan Whedon, is actually a hairstylist, entrepreneur, and influencer with over 115,000 followers on Instagram alone. Hair product companies not only give him free product, but they pay him to use those products in front of his followers. Why does this make sense? Why would people pay for this? Well, it's the same principles as before in terms of consistency. Well, there's a well-established target audience first and foremost, and the influencer has trust with the people who are following them. They have loyalty and interest in what it is that they have to say, and what they do is perceived as much more objective than a marketer trying to sell something. They're viewed as much more honest and a better testing ground for products than the reviews off of, say, Google or Amazon. Now, in using influencers, we have to return to the marketing funnel and make sure that we are deliberately moving people down the funnel in the right ways in order to ensure that people take the appropriate next steps with our brands. It cannot be a haphazard collection of nifty promotions or ads that are going to win Clio awards. We have to drive and leverage engagement at each level. Now let's chat with an industry expert about how we create and leverage organic engagement in this hyper online world that we have. In the next episode, we'll take a look at personal selling techniques and how to best employ them. Until then, book 'em, Dano. Nothing. I said nothing. You ain't gonna do nothing. What's up, what's up, what's up? It's time for Marketing Management with your stellar host, Gavin Fox. Oh, thanks so much for showing up today, Gavin, in your office. Oh, let's make that one go. Yeah, reach. Yeah, there we go. Now our hand's off screen. All right, let's make that really, really, really screwed up. Okay. All right. Now, some less innovative... Now, some less traditional... Ooh, that was tough. Reese's Pieces, on the other hand, said, you can have as much of our product as you want for... It says, hey, that looks really nice on your what? Now these people...